Welcome to The Debrief, where we talk with the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the headlines they're covering this week and where the story's going next. I'm Sarah Westwood, and I'm here today with investigative reporter Gabe Kaminsky. And Gabe, you've been working on a really great series called Disinformation Inc. about these supposedly nonpartisan groups that are working to get conservative sites blacklisted by ad agencies. Tell us about who these, supposedly neutral groups are.
Yeah, the primary group that we focus on is a group called the Global Disinformation Index, and GDI basically has been secretly compiling blacklists of conservative websites and feeding those to advertising companies with the intent of shutting down and deplatforming them. And so several other organizations also do things like GDI, even publicly traded companies. GDI is actually a nonprofit, though.
How do groups like GDI determine what counts as disinformation?
Yeah, that's something we've been trying to unpack, and I think a lot of people would think disinformation would be things like fraud or blatantly false information. But from our reporting, we've kind of unpacked how GDI is clearly acting in a partisan way. They've labeled many center-right media outlets that publish a lot of accurate information as peddling disinformation. Places like the Washington Examiner, Real Clear Politics, Reason Magazine, places like the Daily Wire as well.
How do these disinformation tracking groups make it so that smaller outlets like ours have a more difficult time competing on an even playing field with corporate media?
Yeah, so the blacklists that GDI feeds to advertising companies, essentially those advertising companies, such as one we documented that had subscribed to it, is the Microsoft-owned Xandr. And Microsoft represents a whole swath of American companies, such as often places like Comcast or Walmart, and that then determines whether those major companies, where they will place their ads. And so through this blacklist, it does result in conservative media outlets missing out on massive amounts in advertising dollars.
One thing that has really caught the attention of readers of the series, which include high-level members of Congress as well, is the government's involvement in funding some of these supposedly nonpartisan, but as you've uncovered, actually very partisan disinformation tracking groups. Tell us about the nexus of government funding in those groups.
So the Department of State has provided $666,000 through two entities, the Global Engagement Center and the National Endowment for Democracy, to the Global Disinformation Index, and so essentially linking taxpayer dollars to an effort to suppress, how conservative media outlets can operate. And so it's raised concerns among First Amendment lawyers that we've spoken to, including Ilya Shapiro of the Manhattan Institute, and also different members of Congress, like Representative James Comer, the chairman of the House Oversight Committee.
Yeah, tell us about what Comer and other Republican members of Congress want to do about the situation.
Yeah, that's something we're trying to figure out as well. I mean, trying to ask how do you think you can address this issue? James Comer said he intends to press the Biden administration. Another lawmaker that we quoted in our story was Representative Michael McCaul, who's the chairman of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, which has oversight over State Department grants. And Michael McCaul last year voted to not authorize the Global Engagement Center again, which is one of the entities that funded GDI. So that could result in that entity being stripped of resources. So I think there's different avenues, and I think that certain committees this stuff could fit into, such as the Weaponization Subcommittee, the Judiciary Committee, maybe the House Oversight Committee, but I guess we'll just have to see.
Well, Gabe, thank you so much for being here today. You can get more stories from Gabe and the rest of the reporting team at washingtonexaminer.com.